Welcome, everybody, to the weekly Quantum World Detangled, Season 5, Episode 6. I'm joined by my friends and sponsors, Denise, Ruffner, and Atom Computing.
Hi, André. It's great to see you. And it's a beautiful day in Southern California, and really looking forward to talking to our guests today.
And our guest, we're going down under 2 weeks in a row back to Australia with Andrew Horsley and Quantum Brilliance. Andrew, welcome.
G'day, André and Denise. Pleasure to be with you today.
So let's learn a little bit about you. Maybe you can kick us off by just spending a minute or two giving us your personal journey. Where are you from? How did you kind of grow up? How did you get into physics?
Yeah, sure. So, Quantum Brilliance, we're an Australian and German company, and we got our start here in Canberra, where I'm calling from today. That's actually where I grew up as well. And so I did my undergrad here at the Australian National University, but then went over to Switzerland and had about 6 years there for my PhD. And that's where I really got into the world of quantum. And I was working on atomic physics and looking at different types of quantum sensing, optical quantum memories, and constantly trying to take science and turn that into usable tools. And so that drew me towards Diamond as kind of the most practical platform. I remember the first times working with Diamond, and you don't have to lock your lasers, you don't have to heat it up or cool it down. It's amazing. But then also from quantum sensing and memories to quantum computing is the most impactful thing from a quantum technologies point of view. And so through that, I got to know my other technical co-founder, Marcus Doherty, who's really the pioneer on the theory side of our field. And he happened to be leading a research group in my hometown with the desire to find someone to help commercialize quantum computing with diamonds together. And so that was ticked every single box for me. So I rushed home to join him. That was about 4.5 years ago now. And it's been a fantastic journey since.
And as you said, you're from Canberra, Australia, but Quantum Brilliance is an Australian-German company. You yourself spent some time in Germany, Stuttgart, if I recall, and Switzerland, Basel. Tell us how you ended up in Europe and how that experience was for you.
Yeah, so that was my PhD in Basel, and then the first 6 months of working with Marcus was actually then being kindly hosted by Jörg Wachterup's group in Stuttgart. And so Jörg and also Fedor are kind of two of the key pioneers on the experimental side of quantum diamond systems. And so that was then a knowledge transfer back to Australia of particular things. And then we created some of the IP that's gone into Quantum Brilliance, and Stuttgart's now our European HQ for where we're building up labs and have our offices, and we're setting up things in Ulm and Freiburg as well. But so for both myself and Marcus, that Germany, but particularly Baden-Württemberg, southern Germany, was really home ground for us, where we had a lot of our collaborators from over the years and kind of academically where I grew up, so to say. And so that was a very natural kind of return to set up shop there.
But Switzerland and Germany wasn't your first stint abroad. When you were younger, you spent time in Japan, 6 months, I believe, and you speak Japanese still?
Yeah, less than I should perhaps. It was about 12 months in the end, so that was just a gap year after school. But and really interesting year, no physics involved, but working with a range of kind of outside of school programs. But I did Japanese through high school and studied at university as well. I got to the point of creative writings, and then I was like, that was the least favorite part of high school for me in English. So probably time to focus a bit more on physics. But look, in hindsight, I didn't do a lot of physics in my undergrad. A lot of Japanese and German in the mix.
And I don't know if I picked this up correctly, but you and I, we've known each other for a little bit and preparing for this, going through your resume. Education and kids seem to pop up every now and then. Is that something that's important to you, or? maybe down the road?
Yeah. So in terms of giving back, yeah, it's something that excites myself and the other co-founders in terms of helping build that community and playing a long game there, I suppose. But right now they're a bit disrupted by COVID, but we're really excited to still be able to take part remotely in Australia's National Youth Science Forum, which is a big event that happens in January each year with a whole bunch of high school students, then hundreds now, who get exposed to a whole range of really exciting things that are happening in Australia and getting those career perspectives. And so we were the first non-major corporation, non-government entity to engage directly as a sponsor with that. And yeah, look, it's something that where we can, we're really excited to be able to participate and help, I guess, corrupt young people's minds there.
And I found a beautiful quote by you saying, I've been a tragic science nerd my whole life, kicking off with intense dinosaur and space faces in my primary school years. Do you still play with the dinosaurs now, or what do you do in the little free time I imagine that you get?
Oh, look, there's many responses there. Dinosaurs are pretty cool, let's be frank. But I think one of the things about being a startup founder is any hobby you ever had kind of gets parked for quite some time. So I describe myself as a lapsed cellist at the moment as well. I got to know my partner in the orchestra in Basel, but yeah, it's been a while since I've had a chance to play much of that either.
Very nice. Well, let's learn a little bit more about your quantum exploits and quantum brilliance. Diamonds are girls' best friend. Denise, over to you.
So yes, diamonds are girls' best friend, and I'm fascinated by your company. So why don't we start out and hear a little bit about diamond brilliance or quantum brilliance?
Sure. So quantum brilliance, yeah. So
wait, pause. Say, let me start over. Yes, diamonds are a girl's best friend. And so I've always been really fascinated with the technology your company is using. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're doing at Quantum Brilliance?
Yeah, sure. So Quantum Brilliance, we're working with spin qubits in diamonds. So similar to other platforms like trapped ions, neutral atoms, spin qubits in silicon or other types of solid state, it's then electron and nuclear spins that we use. And they give very high performance. The unique thing about diamond is it provides the isolation from the environment that otherwise you have to rely on cryostats for, or ultra high vacuum systems and complex lasers for. And so with diamond, we have then this pathway to a very simple quantum computer. So we're really about shrinking down quantum computing to be something the size of a regular accelerator card, quantum computing that you can hold in your hands. And so if I take a step back and look at how classical computing is evolving, we're going from a really focus on CPUs and a single architecture to an increasingly heterogeneous mix. And so GPUs are obviously very familiar to people now, but then increasingly a wider variety of accelerator cards, whether it's FPGA based, whether it's application specific based around, say, AI accelerator cards. There's that growth of heterogeneity that is happening in the classical field. How I see quantum brilliance is really about normalizing what quantum computing can be, and joining all those other types of accelerators is just another component in that system. And for certain things, really transforming what you can do and working alongside those, rather than having that mix of accelerators classically, and then your big mainframe sitting off in the corner or off in the cloud. And so that really transforms the types of applications and the types of market that we can address.
That's great. How big is your company now?
So we're about 50 people
50
across
people?
Australia and Germany. Yeah.
In Australia. One of my friends just joined you in Germany, so I'm excited about your German offices, as you said. I think you're also looking at quantum applications work in addition to quantum computing. Do you have any specific focus on applications?
Yeah, so I mean, we go from it's really a full stack company. So we go from kind of fundamental materials work through embedded control systems, electronics, software, out to that application layer. And the application space is quite unique compared to where other companies are able to focus because of that different size weight power that we can get to. It means now you're no longer restricted to one or two quantum computers in a data center or supercomputer, but you can have thousands of them in parallel, just like you have thousands of CPUs, thousands of GPUs in a supercomputer. But really excitingly, you can actually take it out into the world. And so build it into a self-driving car or some robotic and autonomous vehicle, put it up in a satellite or have it under your desk. And so there's this really new set of applications that lets us explore. One example would be combining quantum computing with a classical neural network. And so there, that enables things like natural language processing as an example. But the exciting thing about this is one of the things quantum computers really suck at is input output. It's very expensive in terms of operations. So taking a step back there, you have a very finite number of operations you can perform in a quantum computer at this stage before all the wheels fall off. And they fall off embarrassingly quickly for everybody. And that budget gets chewed up with the quantum circuit you run, but you're stealing from that same budget with any data you input and any data perhaps that you want to output from that quantum computer as well. And so you have a very small number of input-output parameters that you want to define your problem with. That makes it rather hard to say, take, I don't know, a camera image and throw that at a quantum computer directly. What you need is then some kind of classical pre-processing that's then giving you something that's quantum compatible. Now, for things like natural language processing or anything with a neural net, that works quite well. So there you've got a fully classical neural network taking your large raw data set and outputting something that's very highly correlated data set that's very challenging for a classical computer to deal with and maps very well into a quantum computer. And so that pairing, a classical neural net and quantum computer, then lets us address problems that, particularly in these edge computing environments where you have very tight size weight power constraints on the compute that you can put on board, and the 1 or 2 GPUs that you could fit in that device simply can't process a meaningful amount of data for, say, natural language processing at the edge. And so here, with that quantum computer that we're aiming for, that fits into those kind of packages, that lets us then look at these really interesting things like natural language processing or other types of data processing at the edge that you can't do any other way.
That's great. Now, one of the things I read on your website is that the nitrogen vacancy centers in diamonds have the longest coherence time. How long are the coherence times?
Yeah, so not the longest coherence time full stop, but of a solid state system at room temp, they're doing pretty well. So typically you're looking at 1 to 2 milliseconds the electron spin and slightly longer for the nuclear spins. And I guess the takeaway there is not that they're the best qubits you could get, but that they're the best combination of properties for most applications. And so if I think about classical computing, in the supercomputing world for many years, Cray was the bee's knees. Like if you wanted the best supercomputer, you bought a Cray. It was a status symbol. They even came with a couch. And I feel like most quantum computing companies are competing to be the Cray of quantum computing. So that it's a small market, but they're the best. High margin products, but small volume and really quite a niche set of applications. Whereas for us, it's then more like being an NVIDIA or an Intel of quantum computing. And so having a much wider set of applications we can support, a much larger market, but not necessarily being the absolute best, but being the best combination for commercial purposes.
And where do you see your company in the next year or two?
So certainly a lot of growth. So we're 50 now and looking to double or triple that this year. Really doubling down in Germany with that growth and growth of capability. So we've got some fantastic partnerships and programs that we've laid down over the course of 2021. Working with one of the big Fraunhofer institutes in Freiburg, so a whole host of really top-notch university partners in Australia and in Germany. There's commercial partnerships that we want to spin up this year as well. But yeah, really, I guess doubling down on that technical growth over this year and starting to deploy some of our single NV based quantum systems to commercial partners as well.
That sounds great. Thank you. André, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Denise and Andrew. We always like to get a little bit of the international opinion as well. And since you have a presence both in Australia and Europe with Germany, how do you feel about the different regions and the quantum efforts, collaboration, lack thereof? Australia made news a few months ago with a ban on direct foreign investments. Europe has, with the EU flagship program, a very strong program. What do you make out of the global quantum world?
Yeah, look, I think it's still a very early phase of the quantum industry, and so there's a lot of jostling, I think, between countries to then build as much internal capability as they can. I mean, that's one of the things we've found fantastic support in Germany with is then investment into building a national capability in Germany and across the EU as well. I think it's such an important technology. Inevitably, I think we'd be naive to expect anything else from governments in terms of wanting to invest and build their national capabilities, and it's certainly one of the major drivers for the sector right now. So I think it's that side's fantastic. There's I guess the tension there is then the premature kind of locking down of transfer and sharing of expertise and knowledge across borders then, and inflow of capital as well. The governments can't fund the whole picture, and so there that we are needing then ultimately to access capital markets globally, and also access customer markets globally as well. That a government doesn't want to carry the can for the entire journey of that company, and so then those companies, what success looks like is going out and selling stuff around the world and bringing revenue back home as well. So I think I've seen a few places where that's people are a bit more worried about the kind of capability leakage to adversaries than they need to be at the moment, versus the high risk of responding to that and actually then kind of killing the opportunity that they might have available to them.
Well, I certainly see an increasing number of startups, your peers, opening offices abroad, North Americans in Europe, vice versa, and other regions. So hopefully that collaboration will only increase. Let's wrap up with our Marcel Proust, James Lipton inspired questionnaire. It gets more and more famous every week. Andrew, if you accept the mission, 6 rapid fire questions and rapid fire 1 word to 1 sentence answers from you.
Sounds fun. Let's go.
Who's your favorite scientist?
Kathy Foley.
Who is that?
She's Australia's chief scientist.
Kathy Foley.
Incredible inspiration of someone that's she's gone. I mean, so quantum background. She's then pioneered. She was the chief scientist of CSIRO, and then stepped up to the national level. Yeah, just amazing achievements. Real inspiration of what she's achieved. Yeah, and a wonderful person.
Do you have a favorite entrepreneur?
Who comes to mind most? I wouldn't say I do, to be honest.
That leaves room for opportunity. What is the quality that you desire most in a scientist?
I frame it as curiosity and reflection, that you are then looking back and making sure that you're working effectively. I certainly found, if I look back at my early days in the lab versus towards the end, sometimes there were weeks or even months that I may as well not have come in because I was working incredibly hard on something that actually I had the information to know that I shouldn't have actually been doing that thing, right? And so that training to kind of catch yourself and be like, is this really the thing I should be spending my time on?
What do you appreciate most about working in quantum technologies?
I think the dynamism, and it's less specific to quantum, but certainly one of my favorite things of this journey has been getting exposed to a breadth of expertise, bringing in people from a whole bunch of different backgrounds. I mean, in my academic career, I got to work with amazing people, but we're all from a very similar background. Now there's people from the people and culture background, from biz dev, from engineering, a whole range of different technical backgrounds. That's been fantastic, being able to work with all those incredible people and learn off them.
Do you have a favorite quantum tech application, current or future?
So, look, I think those quantum computing at the edge things are really exciting me right now. How then that deployment of even a small number of qubits can really transform things. And so there's that quite early pathway to quantum computers actually doing something computationally useful.
What is your quantum dream?
Quantum everywhere, right? That we're not really seeing that normalization of quantum computing, so that the mystery goes away. It's just another thing that you switch on and forget about, and that it's integrated in most of our devices.
Interesting. Do you have a quantum nightmare?
I wouldn't say I do, no.
And lastly, imagine you wake up tomorrow and in your living room in Canberra, you have a universal fault-tolerant quantum computer sitting. It's room temperature, running on diamonds, obviously. You can't use it yourself. It's the only one in the world. Who do you give it to?
I better give it to the engineers to work out how to make a lot more.
Spoken like a true entrepreneur. Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been really fun to watch Quantum Brilliance grow and evolve over the last couple of years, and glad you opened up in Germany. And thank you for giving us your perspective. Thank you, Denise. Thank you, Atom Computing. This concludes Season 5, Episode 6 of the weekly Quantum World Detangled. Dinosaurs are cool, and you are now detangled.